While Project Risky Business, our 85 Porsche 928, is now mechanically and electrically sorted and runs reliably to any car show I take it to, work needs to move on to cosmetics. The biggest item in the interior is repairing the cracked dash and instrument binnacle. This video is the first in an installment over the next 2 weeks of me taking apart the dashboard, instrument binnacle, and recovering them in time for RADWood Philly occurring the end of May. Stay tuned. It's been about a month since I polished the wheels and replaced the ignition switch on Risky Business, our 1985 Porsche 928S project car. And as a result of those improvements, especially the ignition switch, the car's been running very reliably. In fact, last weekend I took it to a Porsche swap meet in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So that was about a 325-mile round trip. With a perfectly good running Porsche 928 and a cold, rainy Saturday morning here in Jersey in early May, I decided with 2 weeks to go before RADWood Philly, I'd remove the dash and cover it. I've had the Classic 9 dashboard set here about 6 months, and I've just been putting off the project. Never got around to it over the winter. So my buddy Nick made the trip up early Saturday morning, and in 5 hours we were able to take the dashboard, the center console, and the instrument binnacle out. This video describes how that went and what you need to do and look out for. I have to say, of all the projects we've done so far on this car, this was so far it's been one of the easier ones compared to engine mounts and steering racks and God knows what else we've had to do on this car. We only had one minor hiccup I'll get into. Within 5 hours of actually working, we had all the components out. We have 13 days left to get the dashboard, instrument binnacle, and center console recovered, installed, and debugged in time for me to drive the car to RADWood Philly. That's happening on Saturday, May 21st. Very aggressive schedule, but I thought it would be cool to have the dashboard all done before then. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. So here we are. The first component we took out was the center console. And there are, where Nick's left hand is, are 2 bolts and that hold the top of the center console in. But what we found is, in order to take a lot of this out, there are side bolts. What we found is the package trays on either side were holding it in. So now here we are, realizing we have to do that. There's a couple screws. So the package trays, there I am taking the side panels off. In order to take the console out, you see us in that console there. There's 2 power window switches, a moonroof switch, and the rear wiper switch in my car. So you need to take the caps off of those, and then the wiring will fit through the bottom of the console, and that you can remove it. Then we realized there's a couple more screws in the glove box. So I had to take the glove box out. Needed to do that to remove the dashboard anyway, gain access to some other bolts I'll get to. But here we are, finally at a point. Nick's threading through the switches. So those switches I plan to change out so that I have nice new ones, and we can troubleshoot the power window while this is out. Now, here's what it looked like underneath. When I bought this car, the carpets just reeked of a mouse bathroom. I don't know how to put it nicer. I replaced those carpets from Classic 9. That reduced the smell quite a bit, plus a detail. And now, taking the console out, it was clear that mice were all over the dashboard. It's a wonder. So here you see we found mouse droppings. They just started settling out. And there they are coming out onto the brand new carpets. So before we moved any further, we needed to clean all of this up. And here's Nick taking the initiative to vacuum out the area and get rid of all the mouse droppings. So funny story, some of the wiring had actually been chewed. It's a wonder the car didn't have more damage. So luckily it was limited to the wiring on the clock. And what you see there is the lights, that little board above it are the lights for the HVAC, which aren't working right now. So I'll have to replace those before I put it back in. But anyway, it was just curious to hook up a lead to a battery pack starter and see if the clock would function. And what was a bright spot on it is the fact that the clock works. I was able to adjust it to the time at that point. And as you can see, there's no leakage on the LCD screen. So, you know, candidly, I prefer an analog clock. In the earlier models, they had a nice round one, and then they replaced this insert with a analog model in the later models. But the fact that this is working, it's one less thing to worry about when I put the console back together. Moving on. I'm going to show two sequences. Actually, one of them is from a month ago when I worked on the ignition switch because it's a better angle. But for now, so you'll see I have different clothes on and the center console's still in. But I thought it was a better video than what we ended up recording yesterday. Here's a good shot of me a month ago taking the steering wheel off, because this first time, I don't know if the steering wheel had ever been off, but it had been a long time, certainly. So you can see it's a little bit tougher that time by myself than that first time. There I am showing the spring washer. And there's a method to my madness here I wanted to just show, because this video shows me taking off the dash pod after I unscrewed the bottom pieces. And it's a little tricky to do. Now, some people say it just lifts off. In my instance, what you're seeing me here struggle with is I actually had to bend the installation tabs off the bottom of the thing. Nick had to do this on his car at one point, and that gives you clearance to get around the ignition switch. And that's what I'm trying to show here. No harm, no foul. Nobody sees this, and they easily bend back. It's a thin metal, but it was the difference between getting this on and off. For whatever reason, that's what I needed for the clearance on the dash binnacle. So once I did that, and again, this was last month, I bent it into place and did the same thing yesterday. There we go. So you can see that's a good shot of, okay. Moving back to yesterday, what I'm doing here is you'll see Nick coming in from the left side, but on the dash pod are the 6 switches. I'm using needle nose pliers to squeeze the clips. So after removing the actual after removing the switch knobs, I'm using needle nose pliers to remove the various switches from their receptacle. There's a good shot of one, and got to tuck it back in. And Nick has a nice set of hands standing there as I do that. And just a matter of pulling all those out and pulling the switches from their connectors to get the dash pod ready to remove. Now, it's a tough shot, but what I'm doing is I'm working on the ribbons. There are 4 connectors, if I recall. And at least Porsche on this, for most of them, they have clips that easily, you just move the lever arms to either side, and then the wiring comes off. And so there you see, I've done that, and that's the back side. You want to be very careful with that ribbon on the back and not damage that, because you go down a whole different path of repair. But here I am, a different shot from the back of the car as I'm trying to. Nick's instructing me what to do. This really is a 2-person job, taking these things. The dash pod you can do yourself, but the dashboard, you'll see it's a two-person job when we go to pull this out. And I recommend there's some good threads on Renlist that show how to document it. Those were good references. I think maybe I'll put the link in the comments. With the dash pod removed, one upcoming project in the next 14 days is to get the odometer gear changed out. Car's odometer current and trip computer are not working right now, so that's a common failure on these. I have the gear. Nick says he's got a service in Newark that'll do this while you wait. I may just go ahead and do this and get it done. I don't know. I hope I don't regret that. The other thing I've got to look at is the bulbs in here. It's a good time to replace all the bulbs. I see LEDs are an upgrade, so looking to do that as well. So that'll be a sub-project here in the next 2 weeks. All right, what I'm doing here is Nick's actually a second pair of hands. There was one more screw for the dash pod that needed to come out. I'm using my magnetic, my telescoping magnetic tool to be right next to where Nick is unscrewing that, so that as soon as the screw becomes loose, it'll go right on the magnet. And that's what this scene's showing. You see it right there. All right. The only problem we ran into were these three screws here. They're Allen wrench cap screws, and two of them stripped out. They're torqued down quite substantially, and I tried using I think they're an HW5, and I tried using a long shaft Allen screw, one of those angled heads on it, and stripped the two of them out. So these two of these bolts, I ended up using a unibit to drill them out. I don't show that, but it made quick work because they just weren't going to come out. Tried using vice grips on it, and they were just gone. The interesting thing is, as I drilled the caps off, they came off. We were able to pull the plate back, and with the caps drilled off, all the tension in the bolts were now relieved. So once we pulled this back, there's two spacer plates. The rest of what was left of the bolt, the cap screws, could just be threaded by hand. So I thought we were going to be dead in the water on this, but it ended up being much easier. So that's something to be careful of when you're doing this. I want to show this before we show taking the thing out. The dashboard itself only has 4 mounting plates. But you need to remove the glove box, the center console, and there's a variety of bolts holding that. But the dashboard itself, so this is in reverse. On the left side of this is actually the passenger side. There's the one bolt there at the top that you can access once the glove box is out. And then there's that other one on the far left that you access from underneath the dashboard. And actually, it was accessible with the tray in place. The tray is still in that side. If you look at the tray is still in place on that side. Moving over to the right side of this picture is the mounting bolt. So once the instrument binnacle's out, you have access to that top right bolt. It's a little tricky, especially because the defroster hose that goes to the side of the dash is a little bit in the way, but it's doable. You'll see in the next shot, I used 2 long extensions on my 1/4-inch socket along with a universal, and actually came up from underneath the dash to get that. If you try to do it right from the instrument binnacle, it just was very tight and you can't see. This allowed me to look through in the instrument binnacle and do it. So let me show that. Nick's holding up what's left of the tilt steering piece, and I'm putting 2 extensions on. They're long one. That's probably about 8 inches of length, and I'm actually going up through the bottom of the dash to get this bolt out. But once I just loosened it, it wasn't in there very tight. I was able to take that out pretty quickly. All right, and here we are. We're both sitting in the car. Dash has probably never been off in the car in the 40 years of nearly 40 years old, so it was a little sticky, but we knew all the bolts were out, and it basically was just sticking on the dash defroster vents. A little bit of wiggling. It's hard to see in this, but the steering rack clearance you need to be careful with. But there it is sitting in our laps, ready to be reupholstered. So again, I think this is a two-person job, and Nick was a great set of hands. So here we are, and all that dirt you see on the table is mouse droppings. There were a couple spots, candidly, on the back of this dashboard that it was clear had been used as bathrooms by the residents of the mice. It's a wonder this car's wiring is in as good a shape as it is with what we found. So just trying to keep clean. We probably should have wore masks, but mice had not been. This is not fresh droppings. These are old, and so trying to get it cleaned up as much as possible. Now, here we are debating what to do here. Now, the people at Classic 9, the instructions I got said you want to press this back into place, this curved, what it basically curled. Now, the dashboard in this car is cool because the dashboard and the upholstery, it's a two-tone, brown and cashmere, and it features a full leather dash. A fair number of these cars came with a full leather dash. Unfortunately, if you didn't take care of these leather, it dried. What you're seeing here is the effect of that, probably in the sun or at least in extreme heat, wherever this car was in the past. If you saw one of my early videos, this car had the infamous plastic dash cap on the binnacle and the dashboard. That's why you see all this leftover silicone on the dash. And is such the case with those things, those cheap fixes. They warp and they just look just as shitty as the dash, if you will. The next thing I had to do, since this is a leather covered dashboard, Porsche installs these plastic defroster vents to trim out the area. These are almost unobtainium and very expensive to get. So I needed to be very careful pulling these out. And they're just held in by spring clips. The way they're molded provides a clip. And we're just studying it now. And here I am just squeezing, slowly squeezing on the spring clips that hold it to the metal piece of the dash. And they came out. So now as we were studying the dash, Classic 9, the instructions I received from Classic 9 leather said you need to level this back out, re-glue the foam and the leather back so you got a nice smooth surface to put their replacement cover on. We looked at this and the leather is so brittle and it seemed to be separating so easily. We said, let's just try to peel it off and see what we get. Neither one of us thought if we tried to level this out, we'd ever get first of all, we wouldn't get a level surface. And second of all, my worry is that it would start to, whatever adhesive I used to keep this down would end up releasing this anyway down the road, and it would just look like shit again. So right where Nick's head is, I'm sorry, are two cracks, and you could pull the leather away very cleanly. And there you are, I'm going. It looks easy enough here that we can pull the skin, and it just started coming up. It was just amazing how easy that came off. So we just went to town. The nice thing is now I've got two-dimensional patterns to cut the leather I received from Classic 9, the replacement thing from Classic 9, and I'll be able to cut ever so gently the new one so that it fits around these curves. Now, it's interesting is what you see underneath is brown vinyl. So Porsche at the time, and they probably still do, they use a base dashboard in the same color, and then if somebody specifies leather as the option, they just cover over it. So now what we've got is a nice, with that surface, with all the leather off, you'll see the seam. Even the vinyl at that time had a seam going across it. In an upcoming video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along that line and then replace the foam on the upper level of the dashboard. That's a nice braking line. The replacement piece has a seam, and I'm going to level that out across there. So it'll be nice and even, much better than trying to use what's dried up foam that's no longer sealed to the dash. I think I can get this leveled pretty well. That's an upcoming video, but for now, that's where we landed. So we had a good first day, other than the bolts we had to cut out, but not the typical maddening experience I've had doing some other things on this car. So that's it from day one. Got 13 days to go as I do this video, so we're going to be working pretty hard to get things in place and get this car back ready for RADWood Philly on the 21st. So this is the first in a series over the next couple of weeks that as I try to work on getting this car ready for RADWood Philly by the 21st. So fingers crossed. So fingers crossed that we can do this. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button. If you haven't done so, I encourage you to subscribe, and you'll be notified every time I upload videos over the next couple of weeks. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.